Victoria Hale slammed her fist on the restaurant table so hard the wine glasses shook. "I don't need your pity," she hissed at the man sitting across from her, a man she'd known for exactly 11 minutes. But Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He didn't stare at her wheelchair. Instead, he leaned forward and said 5 words that shattered everything she believed about herself. What happened next between a billionaire CEO and a single dad mechanic will change the way you see love forever. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Victoria Hale hadn't cried in 6 years. Not when the doctors told her she'd never walk again. Not when her fiancé left a note on the kitchen counter that read, "I can't do this anymore." Not when she sat alone in a hospital room at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever feel whole again. She had made a decision that night. Tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. And Victoria Hale didn't deal in luxuries. She dealt in results. 6 years later, she was sitting in the corner office of Hale Technologies, the company she'd built from a laptop in her living room into a $200 million empire. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She ignored it again. The third time, she picked it up. "If you don't answer my calls, I'm coming up there," said the voice on the other end. "Megan, I'm in the middle of something." "You're always in the middle of something. That's the problem." Victoria sighed. Megan Park had been her best friend since college. She was also the most relentless human being Victoria had ever met. And in the tech industry, that was saying something. "What do you want?" Victoria asked. "I want you to go on a date." Victoria almost laughed. Almost. "Goodbye, Megan." "Don't you dare hang up on me. I already set it up." "You did what?" "His name is Daniel. He's a good guy, real good guy. He's a mechanic, single dad, solid human being. You're meeting him Friday night at Rosario's." Victoria gripped the armrest of her wheelchair. "You had no right." "I had every right. You're my best friend, and you haven't been on a date in 6 years. 6 years, Vic. That's not strength. That's a prison you built for yourself." The words hit harder than Victoria expected. She sat there, silent, feeling the weight of them settle into her chest. "I don't have time for this," she finally said. "You run a company worth $200 million. You can make time for dinner." "It's not about time, and you know it." Megan's voice softened. "I know. I know exactly what it's about. And that's why I'm pushing. Because someone has to." Victoria closed her eyes. She thought about the last man who'd seen her in a wheelchair for the first time. The way his face had changed. The way his eyes had dropped. The way he'd said, "Oh," like the word was a door closing. "He knows," Megan said quietly. "I told him. About the chair. About everything. And you know what he said?" Victoria waited. "He said, 'Okay, what time?'" Daniel Rivera wiped his hands on a shop rag and looked at his son. Noah was sitting on an overturned bucket in the corner of the garage, drawing something in a notebook with a stubby pencil. "Dad," Noah said without looking up, "what's a blind date?" Daniel froze. "Where'd you hear that?" "Uncle Marco told Aunt Cindy you're going on one. He said you're going to embarrass yourself." Daniel made a mental note to have a conversation with his brother. A long one. "A blind date is when 2 people meet each other for the first time," Daniel said carefully. "They don't know each other yet." Noah looked up. He was 9 years old, but his eyes carried something older. Something that came from watching his mother walk out the door when he was 4, and never come back. "Why would you go eat dinner with someone you don't know?" "Because sometimes, buddy, you gotta take a chance." On what? Daniel crouched down to his son's level. On the possibility that someone might surprise you. Noah considered this. What if they don't? Then we come home and eat pizza and watch a movie. No harm done. Can I come? Daniel hesitated. He'd thought about it, actually. Getting a babysitter for Friday night had already fallen through. His mother was out of town, Marco and Cindy had plans, and the teenage girl down the street had a school thing. We'll figure it out, Daniel said. But they didn't figure it out, and Friday night came faster than Daniel expected. Victoria sat in front of the bathroom mirror for 45 minutes. She'd changed her blouse 3 times. She'd put on lipstick, wiped it off, put it on again. She'd stared at her reflection and asked herself the same question over and over. Why am I doing this? Because Megan wouldn't stop calling. Because it had been 6 years. Because somewhere underneath the armor she'd built, there was a part of her that still wanted to believe. She hated that part. Her driver pulled up to Rosario's at exactly 7:15. She was 15 minutes late, on purpose. A power move. A habit. A way to remind herself, and whoever was waiting, that she was in control. The restaurant was small, warm, nothing fancy. Not the kind of place Victoria usually went. She preferred clean lines, minimal decor, quiet music. Rosario's had checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles, and a guy in the corner playing guitar too loud. She wheeled through the door and scanned the room. And then she saw him. He was sitting at a table near the window. Average height, strong hands, a face that looked like it had spent more time in the sun than in meetings. He was wearing a button-down shirt that looked like he'd ironed it himself, not perfectly, but with effort. And next to him, kicking his legs under the table, was a boy. Victoria stopped. Daniel stood up. Victoria? You brought your kid. It came out sharper than she intended. Daniel blinked, then looked down at Noah, then back at her. I did. Babysitter fell through. I figured it was better to show up with him than not show up at all. He paused. If that's a problem, I understand. We can reschedule. Victoria looked at the boy. Noah was staring at her with wide eyes. Not at the wheelchair, but at her face. Like he was trying to figure something out. What's your name? She asked him. Noah? How old are you, Noah? 9 3/4. Something inside Victoria cracked. Just a little. Just enough. Well, Noah, 9 3/4, she said. Pull out that chair so I can fit at the table. Noah jumped up and dragged the chair away with more enthusiasm than necessary. Daniel watched the exchange with a look Victoria couldn't quite read. Something between relief and gratitude and something else she didn't want to name. She positioned herself at the table. Daniel sat down across from her. Noah sat between them, already reaching for the breadsticks. I should probably apologize, Daniel said. This isn't exactly how blind dates usually go. I wouldn't know, Victoria said. I haven't been on one in a long time. Me either. So we're both rusty. That's fair. There was a silence. Not the uncomfortable kind, the kind that sits between two people who are trying to figure out where to start. Noah broke it. My dad practiced what he was going to say in the mirror. Daniel closed his eyes. Noah. He did. He said, Hi, I'm Daniel. It's nice to meet you, like 15 times. Victoria felt something pull at the corner of her mouth. She fought it. 15 times. Maybe 12, Daniel said. He exaggerates. I don't exaggerate. You also changed your shirt twice. Okay, buddy, that's enough. Victoria looked at Daniel. His face had gone red. Not from embarrassment exactly, more from being completely exposed by a 9-year-old with no filter. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria felt something she hadn't expected. She wanted to stay. The waiter came. Daniel ordered pasta. Victoria ordered salmon. Noah ordered chicken fingers, and then changed his mind to spaghetti, and then changed his mind back to chicken fingers. "He does this everywhere," Daniel said. "Last week at the diner, the waitress just brought him both." "Smart woman," Victoria said. Daniel smiled. It was a real smile. Not the kind people gave her when they were trying too hard, or the kind that faded when they noticed the wheelchair. It was just a smile. Simple. Warm. Unguarded. "So," Daniel said, "Megan told me you run a tech company." "I do. She said it's worth a lot of money." "It is." "I don't know anything about tech," Daniel said. "I fix cars, that's what I know. Engines, transmissions, brake lines. If it's got a motor, I can probably make it run." "That's more useful than most of what I do," Victoria said. Daniel tilted his head. "You don't actually believe that." "No," she admitted, "but it sounded nice." He laughed, a real one, and Victoria felt that crack inside her widen just a little more. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. Victoria stiffened. Here it comes, she thought. The question, the one they always ask. How did it happen? Can you feel your legs? Is it permanent? Every man she'd ever met had asked some version of it, usually within the first 10 minutes. "Go ahead," she said, bracing herself. "What's your favorite thing to eat here? Because this menu is huge, and I already regret ordering the pasta." Victoria stared at him. "That's your question?" "Yeah. Why? What did you think I was going to ask?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "The salmon is good," she said quietly. "Too late for me. I'm stuck with the pasta." "You could change your order." "Nah, I committed. A man's got to stand by his choices, even the bad ones." Noah looked up from his coloring sheet. "Dad makes a lot of bad choices." "Noah, I swear." "Like the time he tried to fix the washing machine and flooded the whole kitchen." Daniel put his face in his hands. Victoria felt the laugh before she could stop it. It came out before she could catch it. A real, full, unexpected laugh that surprised her more than anyone else at the table. Daniel looked up. "There it is," he said softly. "There's what?" "Your laugh. Megan said you don't laugh enough. She's right. You should do it more." Victoria felt the warmth hit her chest like a wave. She didn't know what to do with it. She'd spent so long keeping people at arm's length that the sudden closeness felt dangerous, like standing too near the edge of something. "You talk to Megan a lot?" she asked, deflecting. "She called me 4 times this week. Once to tell me where to go, once to tell me what to wear, once to tell me not to mess this up, and once to threaten me." "That sounds like Megan." "She cares about you." "She's annoying." "Those 2 things aren't mutually exclusive." Victoria looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Not at his clothes or his hands or his imperfect shirt. At him. At the way his eyes stayed steady. At the way he talked to his son without condescension. At the way he hadn't once, not once, looked at her wheelchair with anything other than complete indifference. "Why did you say yes?" she asked, suddenly. Daniel paused. "To the date?" "Yes. Megan told you about me, about the chair, about the company. Most men hear wheelchair and they're gone. The rest hear CEO and they're intimidated. You're neither. So why are you here?" Daniel leaned back in his chair. He looked at Noah, who was now building a tower out of sugar packets. Then he looked back at Victoria. "Because my son's mother left 5 years ago. Walked out the door and never came back. And for a long time I told myself I didn't need anyone. I had Noah. I had the shop. I had my family. That was enough." He picked up his water glass, turned it slowly in his hands. But you know what, Victoria? It's not enough, and I'm tired of pretending it is. So when Megan called and told me about a woman who built an empire from nothing, who doesn't take garbage from anyone, who happens to use a wheelchair, I didn't think, oh, that's complicated. I thought, that sounds like someone who understands what it means to fight for something. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. The guitar player, the clinking dishes, the laughter from other tables, all of it became background. There was just Daniel's voice and the weight of what he'd said. Victoria swallowed hard. Most people don't talk like that on a first date. Most people aren't honest on a first date. I don't have time for that. I've got a kid, a mortgage, and a shop that barely breaks even. I don't have the energy to pretend to be something I'm not. What are you then? I'm a man who's tired of being alone and too stubborn to admit it. Until right now, apparently. Noah's sugar packet tower collapsed. He looked up at both of them. Are you guys going to keep talking like this all night? Because I'm hungry. Daniel shook his head slowly. The moment's gone, buddy. What moment? Never mind. Eat your breadstick. Victoria watched them, father and son. The way Daniel reached over and brushed crumbs off Noah's shirt without thinking. The way Noah leaned into his father's arm like it was the safest place in the world. And she thought about what it would feel like to be part of something like that. Not the CEO. Not the woman in the wheelchair. Not the success story or the cautionary tale or the inspiration. Just a woman sitting at a table with a good man and his son, eating dinner on a Friday night. The food arrived. They ate. Noah talked about his school project, a diorama of the solar system made out of painted styrofoam balls. Daniel talked about a 1967 Mustang he was restoring at the shop. Victoria, to her own surprise, talked about the time she coded her first program at 14 and crashed her parents' computer so badly they had to buy a new one. You were a troublemaker, Daniel said. I was curious. There's a difference. Is there? A troublemaker breaks things for fun. A curious person breaks things to understand how they work. And which one is Noah? They both looked at the boy, who had somehow gotten spaghetti sauce on his forehead, despite ordering chicken fingers. Both, Victoria said. Daniel laughed again, and Victoria realized something that scared her more than any boardroom negotiation, any investor meeting, any quarterly report. She didn't want this night to end. The check came. Daniel reached for it. Victoria reached for it at the same time. I got it, Daniel said. I can pay for dinner. I know you can, but I asked you out. Well, Megan asked you out for me, but the point stands. Let me get this one. This one? That implies there'll be another. Daniel held her gaze. I hope so. Victoria let go of the check. She let him pay. And she told herself it wasn't about the money. It was about letting someone do something for her. Which, if she was being honest, was harder than writing a check for any amount. They walked out together, Daniel carrying a sleepy Noah on one shoulder, Victoria wheeling beside them into the cool night air. Thank you, Daniel said, for not walking out when you saw I brought him. Thank you for bringing him. She searched for the word. He's the best part of the evening. Don't tell him that. His ego's big enough. Noah mumbled something into Daniel's shoulder that neither of them could hear. They stood there, or rather, he stood and she sat, in the parking lot of a small Italian restaurant on a Friday night, neither of them wanting to be the first to say goodbye. Good night, Daniel, Victoria said. Good night, Victoria. She turned her chair and headed toward her car. She was almost there when she heard his voice behind her. Hey, Victoria. She stopped, turned back. For the record, Daniel said, I'm glad I said yes. She looked at him, this mechanic, this single father, this man who hadn't flinched, hadn't stared, hadn't asked the question everyone always asks. This man who brought his son on a blind date and practiced his greeting in the mirror 12 times. "For the record," she said, "so am I." She got in her car, closed the door, sat in the dark for a moment, and for the first time in 6 years, Victoria Hale felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every pause, every moment Daniel had looked at her without flinching. She picked up her phone 3 times to text Megan. She put it down 3 times. She wasn't ready to admit what she was feeling, not to Megan, not to herself. At 2 in the morning, her phone buzzed. It was Megan. Of course it was Megan. "Well, don't make me wait until morning. I will drive to your house." Victoria typed back one word. "Fine." Fine the date was fine, or fine you'll tell me? Fine. It was fine. Victoria Hale, you are the worst communicator on the planet for someone who runs a communications technology company. Victoria almost smiled. She typed, "Good night, Megan," and turned off her phone. But sleep didn't come, because every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel leaning back in that chair, turning the water glass in his hands, saying words that no one had said to her in 6 years. Words that weren't about her money, weren't about her chair, were about her. And that terrified her. Monday morning hit like a freight train. Victoria was in the office by 6:30, buried in a product launch that had been giving her team headaches for weeks. She had back-to-back meetings until noon, a conference call with investors at 2, and a stack of reports that needed her signature by end of day. This was her world. Numbers, strategy, control. She understood this world. She was good at this world. Her phone buzzed at 10:15. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she read the message. "Hey, it's Daniel. Megan gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Noah wanted me to tell you he got an A on his solar system project. He says you're his good luck charm." Victoria stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Miss Hale, your 10:30 is here." "Give me a minute." She read the text again. Then she typed back, "Tell Noah his good luck charm expects nothing less than straight A's from now on." The response came quickly. "He says that's a lot of pressure for a chicken finger guy." Victoria pressed her lips together to keep from laughing in her own office. She typed, "He ordered chicken fingers at an Italian restaurant. He can handle pressure." "Fair point. How's your Monday?" She looked at the stack of papers on her desk, the blinking notifications on her laptop, the assistant still hovering outside her door. "Busy," she typed. "Same. Got a transmission rebuild that's giving me grief. But I wanted to say thanks again for Friday. Noah hasn't stopped talking about you." "Just Noah?" She sent it before she could stop herself. The moment the message delivered, she felt her stomach drop. Too forward. Too much. She was about to type something to walk it back when his reply appeared. "No, not just Noah." Victoria put her phone face down on the desk. She pressed her palms flat against the surface and took a breath. Then another. Then she picked the phone back up. "I had a good time too," she typed, and she meant it more than she wanted to. The week passed in a blur of meetings and late nights and texts that came at unexpected moments. Daniel sending a photo of Noah covered in grease after helping at the shop. Victoria sending back a photo of her own desk buried in paperwork with the caption, "My version of a mess." They talked about nothing important and everything important at the same time. Favorite movies. Worst meals they'd ever cooked. The time Daniel accidentally set off the fire alarm making pancakes. The time Victoria gave a keynote speech with her blouse on inside out and didn't realize until the Q&A. It was easy. And easy scared Victoria more than anything. By Thursday, Megan called. "So, are you going to see him again? Or are you going to overthink this until it dies?" "I'm not overthinking anything." "You've been overthinking since 2003. It's your default setting." "Megan, he asked you out again, didn't he?" Victoria paused. "How do you know that?" "Because he called me to ask if it was too soon. I told him to go for it. So when he asks, say yes." "You're managing my love life now?" "Someone has to. You fired your last 3 assistants for trying." Victoria laughed. She actually laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep, the kind she'd almost forgotten she was capable of. "Say yes, Vic," Megan said softly. "Just say yes." Daniel texted her that evening. "Noah has a soccer game Saturday morning. After that, I was thinking maybe we could grab lunch. Just us this time. Unless you want Noah there. He'd probably crash it anyway." Victoria typed her response without hesitation. "Just us sounds good. But tell Noah I expect a full game report." "Done. He's already planning a dramatic reenactment." Saturday came. Victoria spent an hour choosing what to wear, which infuriated her because she was a woman who made million-dollar decisions in seconds. But this wasn't business. This was something she couldn't control, couldn't predict, couldn't put in a spreadsheet and analyze. Daniel picked her up. He drove a truck, not new, not flashy, but clean. He'd washed it. She could tell by the way the dashboard still had water spots in the corners. "You cleaned your truck," she said as she transferred from her chair. "I vacuumed it too. Found 11 French fries under Noah's seat." "Only 11? "That I could reach. There might be a civilization forming under there." He folded her wheelchair and put it in the back with a naturalness that caught her off guard. No hesitation. No awkwardness, like he'd done it 100 times before. They drove to a diner on the edge of town. Not the kind of place Victoria would ever go. Peeling vinyl booths, coffee that had been sitting too long, a jukebox in the corner that only played songs from the 70s. "This is your pick?" Victoria asked. "Best burgers in the state. Trust me." "I don't trust people who make claims about burgers." "Then you haven't had the right burger yet." They ordered. Victoria got a burger, against her better judgment. Daniel got the same, plus onion rings, plus a milkshake that came in a glass the size of a small vase. "You eat like a teenager," she said. "I work like one too. 12-hour days, 7 days a week some months." "Why?" Daniel shrugged. "Because the shop doesn't run itself. And Noah's got braces coming, and the roof needs fixing, and there's always something." "You could expand, hire more people." "With what money?" "A business loan, an investor. There are options." Daniel looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Victoria, I fix cars. I'm not building an empire. I'm building a life for my kid." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." "Maybe not for you. For me, it's different. I don't need more. I just need enough." The words sat between them. Victoria felt the familiar pull, the urge to push, to strategize, to solve. It was what she did. She saw problems and she fixed them. But Daniel wasn't a problem, and his life wasn't broken. "I'm sorry," she said. I was being..." "You were being you. Don't apologize for that." "I was being pushy." "You were being someone who sees potential. That's not a bad thing. It's just, my potential looks different than yours." Victoria picked up an onion ring. She stared at it like it held the answers to something. "I have a hard time with that." "With what?" "With not fixing things. With sitting still. With accepting that something is fine the way it is." Daniel leaned forward. "Is that about my shop or about you?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Victoria felt the ripples spread through her chest. Both, maybe, she said quietly. What would you fix about yourself, if you could? She looked up at him. That's a loaded question for a second date. I'm a mechanic. I deal in diagnostics. Tell me what's under the hood. Victoria set down the onion ring. She folded her hands in her lap. A boardroom habit, a way of composing herself before saying something difficult. I would fix the part of me that believes I'm only worth what I produce. That if I stop working, stop achieving, stop proving myself, I disappear. That without the company, without the success, without the constant forward motion, I'm just a woman in a wheelchair with nothing to offer. She said it plainly. No drama, no tears. Just the truth, laid out on a table between ketchup bottles and paper napkins. Daniel didn't respond right away. He sat with it, let it breathe. And when he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. You know what I see when I look at you? Don't. I'm going to say it anyway. Daniel, I see a woman who's so used to carrying everything alone that she forgot other people have arms too. Victoria's throat tightened. She looked away, at the jukebox, at the counter, at anything that wasn't his face. Because if she looked at his face right now, something was going to break, and she wasn't sure she could put it back together. I don't need someone to carry things for me, she said. I know. That's not what I said. I said you forgot other people can. There's a difference. What's the difference? The difference is choice. You don't need help, but you could choose to let someone help anyway. Not because you're weak, because you're human. The jukebox switched songs, something slow and old and full of strings. Victoria still wouldn't look at him. My ex-fiancé left because of the wheelchair, she said. Did Megan tell you that? She mentioned it. We were together for 3 years. After the accident, he stayed for 4 months. 4 months of watching me learn to do everything differently. Get dressed, get in the car, take a shower. He watched me struggle, and he couldn't handle it. Not because it was hard for me, because it was hard for him. He was a coward. He was honest. Most people can't handle it. They want to, they think they can, but when they see the reality of it, the chair, the limitations, the stares from strangers, they leave. Everyone leaves eventually. Daniel reached across the table, not for her hand, for the salt shaker. He salted his fries slowly, deliberately, like he was buying himself time to think. My ex-wife left too, he said. Not because of a wheelchair. Because she woke up one morning and decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore. She said she felt trapped. Said Noah was a mistake. Said the whole marriage was a mistake. He put the salt down. Noah was 4. He stood at the window for 3 weeks straight, waiting for her to come home. Every car that pulled into the driveway, he'd run to the door. Every single time. And every single time, it wasn't her. Victoria finally looked at him. His jaw was tight. His eyes were steady, but there was something behind them. A pain so deep it had become part of the architecture of who he was. How did you get through it? She asked. I didn't. Not really. You don't get through something like that. You just learn to build around it. You put up new walls, new rooms, new spaces where the pain can live without taking up the whole house. That sounds like what I did. Probably is. The difference is you built a company. I built a routine. Wake up, make breakfast, take Noah to school, go to the shop, pick Noah up, make dinner, homework, bedtime. Repeat. Every single day for 5 years. And that's enough? Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, she saw the crack in his armor. The one he kept hidden behind the easygoing smile and the dad jokes and the steady hands. No, he said. It's not enough. But I told myself it was, because the alternative was admitting I was lonely. And lonely felt like failing. Like if I couldn't keep my wife around, what business did I have wanting someone else? Victoria understood that. She understood it so deeply, it hurt. "We're a pair, aren't we?" she said. "Yeah, we're a mess." "A well-functioning mess." "The best kind." They ate their burgers. Victoria admitted, reluctantly, that it was the best burger she'd ever had. Daniel pretended not to be smug about it and failed completely. "Don't let it go to your head," she said. "Too late. This is going in the shop newsletter." "You have a newsletter?" "No, but I might start one just for this." Victoria shook her head, but she was smiling. Not the polished, professional smile she gave investors and reporters. A real one. The kind that reached her eyes and stayed there. Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his whole demeanor shifted. "It's Noah's coach," he said, standing up. "Give me a second." He walked toward the door, phone pressed to his ear. Victoria watched him, the way his shoulders tensed, the way he ran his hand through his hair, the way his voice dropped low and urgent. He came back 2 minutes later. His face had changed. "Noah got hurt at the game. He fell and hit his head. They think he's okay, but they want me to take him to get checked out." Victoria felt her chest tighten. "Go." "I'm sorry, Daniel, go, right now." He was already pulling out his wallet. Victoria grabbed his wrist. "Don't you dare try to pay. Go get your son." He looked at her. In that moment, she saw everything. The fear, the guilt, the weight of being the only one a 9-year-old boy could count on. "I'll call you," he said. "You better." He left. Fast. The door swung shut behind him, and Victoria sat alone in the booth, her half-eaten burger going cold, her heart hammering in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the realization that she cared. Not about the date, not about the meal. About a boy she'd met once, and a man she barely knew. She paid the check, she called her driver, and the whole ride home she kept her phone in her hand, waiting. The call came at 4:17. "He's okay," Daniel said. His voice was tired, raw, relieved. "Minor concussion. They said to watch him overnight, keep him awake for a few hours, check his pupils, the usual drill." The usual drill? This has happened before? He's a 9-year-old boy who thinks he's invincible. This is the 3rd time in 2 years. 3rd time? Fell off the monkey bars, ran into a goalpost, and now this. My kid collects head injuries like other kids collect baseball cards. Victoria let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Is he scared? He's mad. He missed the second half of the game. His team won without him, and he's convinced they couldn't have done it if he'd been playing. Sounds like someone I know. Me? Me, actually. I once called into a board meeting from a hospital bed because I didn't trust my VP to handle the quarterly review. Daniel laughed, but it was thin, exhausted. "Victoria, I'm sorry about lunch." "Stop apologizing. Your son hit his head. That's not something you apologize for." "I know, but—" "Daniel, listen to me. You dropped everything and ran to your kid. That's not something to be sorry about. That's something to be proud of." There was a long pause. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was different, softer, like something had loosened. "He asked about you," Daniel said. "Noah?" In the car on the way to the hospital, head bleeding, ice pack on his forehead, and the first thing he says is, "Did you leave Victoria at the restaurant by herself?" Victoria pressed her hand to her mouth. "I told him yes," Daniel continued, "and he said, 'Dad, that's not how you treat a lady.'" Direct quote. My 9-year-old is better at this than I am. He's right, you know. I know he's right. That's the worst part. Victoria closed her eyes. Tell him I said to feel better. And tell him his good luck charm is sending him all the luck she's got. I will. Good night, Victoria. Good night, Daniel. Take care of your boy. She hung up. She sat in the dark of her living room, phone still warm in her hand, and she thought about what it meant to care about someone this quickly, this deeply, this recklessly. She'd spent 6 years building walls, thick ones, the kind that kept out everything: pain, disappointment, loneliness, and love. She'd told herself the walls were strength. She'd told herself independence meant not needing anyone. She'd told herself the chair was the reason people left, and if she just kept everyone far enough away, she'd never have to watch another person walk out the door. But Daniel hadn't walked out. He'd run out, to his son, and somehow that made her trust him more than any grand gesture ever could. She picked up her phone and texted Megan. You were right. The response was immediate. I'm always right. But about what specifically? About taking a chance. And? How does it feel? Victoria thought about it. About the way Daniel's voice sounded when he said Noah was okay. About the way Noah had asked about her from the backseat of a car with blood on his forehead. About the way Daniel looked at her like the wheelchair was the least interesting thing about her. Terrifying, she typed. Good, Megan wrote back. That means it's real. Victoria put the phone down. She stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling she'd stared at a week ago, the night after the first date, when sleep wouldn't come and the silence felt different than it had in years. It still felt different. But now she knew why. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting. 3 days later, Daniel texted her a photo. Noah, sitting on the couch, a bandage on his forehead, holding up a handmade card. The card said, in crooked 9-year-old handwriting, "Thank you for being my dad's good luck charm. Get it? Because you said I was yours? Now we're even." Victoria stared at that photo for a long time. She saved it to her phone. She looked at it again before bed that night, and again the next morning, and again during a meeting she should have been paying attention to. And she realized, sitting in her corner office on the 32nd floor, surrounded by everything she'd built, everything she'd fought for, everything she'd sacrificed to achieve, she realized that a handmade card from a 9-year-old boy with a bandaged forehead meant more to her than any deal she'd ever closed. That scared her. That changed her. That made her pick up the phone and do something she hadn't done in 6 years. She called Daniel first. Not texted. Called. "Hey," he answered. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. She paused, swallowed. "I wanted to hear your voice." The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds. It felt like an hour. "I'm glad you called," Daniel said. Yeah? Yeah. I was just thinking about you, actually. Noah and I are making dinner. Well, I'm making dinner. Noah is supervising, which mostly means telling me I'm doing everything wrong. Am I interrupting? Victoria, you could interrupt me any time. I mean that. She heard Noah's voice in the background. Is that Victoria? Tell her I said hi. Tell her my head is better. She can hear you, buddy. You're yelling. Hi, Victoria! She laughed. That same laugh. The one that came from somewhere deep. The one Daniel had pulled out of her at Rosario's, like a magician pulling a coin from thin air. Hi, Noah, she said. I'm glad your head is better. It still hurts a little, but Dad says I'm tough. You are tough. Dad, she says I'm tough. I heard her. Go stir the pasta. There was shuffling. Then Daniel's voice came back, closer now, quieter. Sorry about that. Don't be. I like hearing him. He likes you. That's a big deal, Victoria. Noah doesn't warm up to people. After his mom left, he kind of shut down with new people. Took him a year to talk to his teacher without me in the room. But he talked to me the first night. I know. That's what I'm saying. Whatever you did, whatever he sees in you, it's real. Kids don't fake that. Victoria felt the sting behind her eyes. She blinked it back. Daniel, I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of how fast this is happening. Of how much I already care about you and your son. I built my entire life around not caring. And in 2 weeks, you've undone all of it. And I don't know what to do with that. She heard him breathe. Slow, steady. You don't have to do anything with it, he said. You just have to let it exist. That's the hardest part. I know. Believe me, I know. I've been hurt, Daniel. Badly. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. But you and Noah, you're already close. You're already in. And I didn't even see it happening. Neither did I, he said. I went on that date because Megan guilted me into it. I brought my kid because I had no babysitter. I wore that stupid shirt because it was the only clean one I had. None of this was planned, and maybe that's why it works. Because we're not trying? Because we're not performing. We're just being. And I don't know about you, but that's the first time I've felt like myself in 5 years. Victoria pressed her phone against her ear, like she could get closer to him through the signal. Noah's pasta's probably burning, she said. Definitely burning. Go save it. Will you call me tomorrow? Yes. Promise? I promise. She hung up. She sat in her living room, in the dark, in the silence that wasn't empty anymore, and she let the tears come. Not sad tears, not grief tears, not the tears she'd locked away 6 years ago in a hospital room at 3 a.m. These were different. These were the kind of tears that come when something frozen finally begins to thaw. Victoria called him the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. It became a rhythm, something she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Morning texts, afternoon check-ins, evening calls that started with just a quick one and lasted 2 hours. She'd be reviewing contracts, and her phone would buzz with a photo of Noah's latest drawing. A rocket ship, a dinosaur. Once a surprisingly detailed portrait of Victoria in her wheelchair with the caption, "My dad's friend," written in red crayon underneath. She kept every single one. 2 weeks into whatever this was, she still didn't have a word for it. Daniel invited her to the shop. You don't have to come, he said on the phone. It's not exactly glamorous. There's grease on everything, the coffee tastes like motor oil, and Noah will probably talk your ear off about his new obsession, which is volcanoes. I'll be there at noon, Victoria said. She arrived at 12:15, a power move, a habit. But this time, as her driver pulled up to Rivera Auto Repair, a small battered building with a hand-painted sign and a parking lot full of cars in various states of repair, she realized the power move felt ridiculous. This wasn't a boardroom. This was Daniel's world, and she was the one who didn't belong. She wheeled through the open bay door and immediately heard Noah before she saw him. "Victoria's here! Dad! Victoria's here!" Noah came running from somewhere behind a Ford pickup, his shoes untied, his shirt already stained. His face lit up like someone had plugged him into a wall socket. "Did you know that Yellowstone is actually a supervolcano? And if it erupts, it could cover the entire United States in ash?" "I did know that, actually," Victoria said. "Did you know it's overdue?" "I've heard that too." "We could all die." "Noah," Daniel's voice came from under a car on a lift. "Maybe don't lead with the apocalypse. But it's true.
Daniel slid out on a creeper, wiping his hands on a rag. He was covered in grease, arms, shirt, a streak across his forehead. He looked nothing like the man who'd worn the carefully ironed button-down at Rosario's. He looked like himself. "Hey," he said, standing up. "Hey. You came." "I said I would." "I know, He glanced around the shop, at the tools on the walls, the oil stains on the concrete floor, the ancient radio playing country music in the corner. "This isn't exactly your world." "No," Victoria agreed. "It's not." She looked around, not at the building or the equipment, at the walls. Photos everywhere. Noah as a baby. Noah's first day of school. Noah on Daniel's shoulders at a baseball game. A photo of Daniel and an older woman who had his same eyes, his mother probably. A certificate from the County Business Association. A crayon drawing taped to the register that said, "Best Dad Ever," with a D written backwards. "It's better," she said. Daniel looked at her. "Better than what?" "Better than mine." He didn't argue with her. He didn't compliment her office, or her company, or her success. He just nodded, like he understood what she meant, without her having to explain it. "Want the tour?" he asked. "Is it long?" "About 45 seconds. It's not a big place." He showed her around. The 2 bays, the waiting area, with its mismatched chairs and a coffee machine that looked older than Noah. The small office in the back, where paperwork covered every surface. Noah followed them the entire time, providing commentary that was half accurate and half invented. "That's where Dad fixed a car that was on fire once." "It wasn't on fire," Daniel said. "It was smoking." "It was on fire." "Noah, there were flames, Dad." "There was one flame. One. Very small." Victoria watched them go back and forth and felt something settle inside her. Something warm and heavy and permanent, like a stone dropping to the bottom of a clear lake. They ate lunch in the office. Sandwiches from the deli down the street. Noah sat on the desk, legs swinging, telling Victoria about every kid in his class, with the detailed specificity of a prosecutor building a case. "Marcus always picks his nose during math. Sophia pretends she doesn't know the answers, but she's actually the smartest one. And Tyler told everyone he has a pet alligator, but I've been to his house and he has a hamster." "The audacity," Victoria said. "What's audacity?" "It means Tyler has a lot of nerve." "He does. He really does." Daniel leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching them. Victoria caught his eye. He smiled at her, that same smile, the one that was just a smile, nothing extra, nothing hidden. And she felt the ground shift under her in a way that had nothing to do with her wheelchair. After lunch, Noah went back to his corner of the shop to work on homework. Daniel walked Victoria to her car. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I know this isn't... If you say, 'isn't my world' one more time, I'm going to run over your foot." He grinned. "Fair enough." "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Why haven't you kissed me yet?" The question hit the air between them like a thunderclap. Daniel's grin faded, not into something negative, but into something serious, something real. "Because I wanted to make sure you wanted me to," he said. "I'm asking, aren't I?" "You're asking why I haven't. That's different from asking me to." Victoria looked up at him. He was standing close enough that she could see the grease still on his hands, the stubble on his jaw, the tiny scar above his left eyebrow that she'd never noticed before. "Kiss me," she said. He crouched down, not kneeling, crouching, so they were face to face, eye to eye, the way he crouched to talk to Noah. Like being at her level was the most natural thing in the world. And he kissed her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was soft and slow and tasted like coffee and certainty. It was the kind of kiss that said, "I'm not going anywhere." When he pulled back, Victoria's hands were shaking. She grabbed the armrests of her chair to hide it. "For the record," Daniel said, "I've wanted to do that since you told Noah to pull out that chair at Rosario's." "That long?" "That long. You have terrible timing." "I have excellent timing. I was just being patient." "Patient or scared?" "Both. Definitely both." Victoria laughed. That laugh. The one he kept pulling out of her, like it had been buried under 6 years of concrete and he had a jackhammer. She went home that afternoon and sat in her living room and pressed her fingers to her lips and felt, for the first time in 6 years, like she was waking up from something. Things moved quickly after that. Or maybe they moved slowly. Victoria couldn't tell anymore. Time had become elastic, stretching and compressing around the moments that mattered. Daniel started calling her every night after Noah went to bed. They'd talk for hours, about everything, about nothing, about the things people only say in the dark when they think no one's really listening. "What's the worst part?" he asked one night. "About the chair. What's the part that nobody asks about?" Victoria was quiet for a long time. "The invisibility," she said finally. "What do you mean?" "People either stare at the chair or they look away. Either way, they're not seeing me. I walk into a meeting. I roll into a meeting. And I can feel the room shift. They see the chair first, then the woman. Sometimes they never get past the chair. That's why you work so hard." "That's why I work so hard. Because if I'm the most successful person in the room, they have to see me. They can look at the chair all they want, but the numbers on the board, the product we're shipping, the company I built, those things demand attention. And attention is the closest thing to visibility I've got." "Victoria." "What?" "I see you." "I know." "No, I mean it. Not the chair, not the company. You. The woman who laughs at her own jokes before she finishes them. The woman who saved every drawing my kid made. The woman who eats onion rings like they're a religious experience. I see that woman, and she doesn't need a quarterly report to be visible." Victoria pressed the phone against her ear so hard it hurt. "You're going to make me cry," she whispered. "Would that be so bad?" "I don't cry." "You told me that before. I don't believe you." "I cried once, a couple weeks ago, after you called me about Noah's head." "You did?" "First time in 6 years." "What kind of tears?" "The good kind. The kind that means something is changing." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "Something is changing, Victoria. For both of us." "Does that scare you?" "Every single day." "Me too." "Good. Then we're scared together. That's better than being scared alone." She fell asleep with the phone on the pillow next to her. When she woke up in the morning, there was a text from Daniel, sent at 1:47 a.m. "You fell asleep. I listened to you breathe for a while before I hung up. I hope that's not creepy. If it is, blame it on the fact that it's the most peaceful sound I've heard in 5 years." Victoria read that text 3 times. Then she saved it. Then she read it again. The next Saturday, Daniel brought Noah to Victoria's apartment. Noah walked in, looked around at the sleek, modern furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the pristine kitchen that looked like it had never been used, and said, "Where's all your stuff?" "What do you mean?" Victoria asked. "There's no stuff. No drawings on the fridge, no shoes by the door, no blankets on the couch. It looks like a hotel." Daniel put his hand on Noah's shoulder. "Buddy, it's okay," Victoria said. "He's right." She looked at her apartment through Noah's eyes, and for the first time saw what he saw. A space that was designed, curated, controlled, and completely empty of life. No clutter, no mess,
No evidence that anyone actually lived there. "I guess I like things clean," she said. "Clean is one thing," Noah said with the devastating honesty of a child. "This is sad." "Noah," Daniel said. "What? It is. There's nothing on the walls, not even a picture of her family." The words hit Victoria harder than the boy could have known. She looked at the walls, bare, white, perfect, and realized that Noah was right. There were no photos, no memories, no evidence of connection. She'd decorated her apartment the same way she'd built her life after the accident. Minimized, streamlined, stripped of anything that could remind her of what she'd lost. "I don't have a lot of family," Victoria said carefully. Noah looked up at her. "You have us." 3 words, 5 syllables, delivered by a 9-year-old boy standing in her living room like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Victoria looked at Daniel. He was watching her, his eyes soft, his hands in his pockets, letting his son do what his son did best, say the thing nobody else had the courage to say. "Yeah," Victoria said, her voice thick. "I guess I do." Noah spent the next 2 hours exploring her apartment like a detective. He opened every cabinet, inspected every room, and provided running commentary on everything he found insufficient. "You have no snacks." 0. "Dad, she has no snacks." "She's an adult, Noah. Adults don't always keep snacks." "Dad, everyone needs snacks. That's not an age thing, that's a survival thing." "He has a point," Victoria said. "Don't encourage him." "Your cheese is expired. Like, really expired. Like, it might be alive." "Throw it away," Victoria said. "Already did. Also, your TV is really big, but you only have 4 channels saved and they're all news." "I like being informed." "You need cartoons. Cartoons are important for mental health." Daniel covered his face with his hand. "Where does he get this?" "From being right," Victoria said. "He gets it from being right." Noah eventually settled on the couch with Victoria's tablet, watching something loud and colorful while Daniel and Victoria sat in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," Daniel said quietly. "He doesn't have a filter." "I don't want him to have a filter. Everyone in my life has a filter. Every single person I interact with, my employees, my investors, my board, they all filter everything they say to me. They manage me. They handle me. Noah just tells me my cheese is expired and I need cartoons. Do you know how refreshing that is?" He told his teacher last month that her breath smelled like a fish tank. Was he wrong? No, but the parent-teacher conference was awkward. Victoria laughed, but underneath the laughter something was shifting. Something fundamental. She looked at Noah on the couch, this small, fearless, motherless boy who walked into her sterile apartment and immediately saw what was missing, who told her the truth when everyone else told her what she wanted to hear, who said, "You have us," like it was a fact, not a question. "Daniel," she said. "Yeah?" "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen." He put down his coffee. "Okay." "When I was in the hospital, after the accident, I had a conversation with my mother. She flew in from Phoenix, sat by my bed, held my hand. And she said, 'Victoria, you're going to have to be stronger now than you've ever been. You're going to have to do everything yourself, because the world doesn't wait for people in wheelchairs.'" Victoria paused. Her hands were in her lap, fingers laced together. She meant it as motivation. She meant it to empower me. And it did. It drove me to build the company, to prove everyone wrong, to become everything I am. But it also did something else. It told me that needing someone was weakness, that asking for help was failure, that the only person I could ever truly count on was myself. "Victoria, I'm not finished. Let me finish. He went quiet. I've lived by that for 6 years. Every decision, every relationship, every wall I've built, it's all based on that one conversation. My mother's voice in my head saying, "Do it yourself, trust no one, need no one." And it worked. It got me here.
It made me successful and independent and strong. She looked up at him.
And it made me completely alone. Daniel didn't move. He sat perfectly still, letting her words fill the space between them. You and Noah, she continued, you're the first people in 6 years who've made me want to question that. And questioning it feels like betrayal, like I'm betraying the version of myself that survived. The one who clawed her way out of that hospital bed and built something from nothing. If I let you in, if I let myself need you, what happens to her? What happens to the woman who didn't need anyone? She doesn't disappear, Daniel said. How do you know? Because I'm looking at her right now, and she's still here. She's still the woman who built a $200 million company. She's still the woman who doesn't take garbage from anyone. Letting someone in doesn't erase who you are, Victoria. It adds to it. What if you leave? There it was. The question she'd been carrying since the night her fiancé left a note on the counter. The question that lived underneath everything. Underneath the success, the control, the independence, the armor. What if you leave? Daniel reached across the table and took her hands, both of them. He held them firmly, like he was holding something he never intended to let go of. I'm a man who stood at a window with his 4-year-old son for 3 weeks, waiting for someone who never came back. I know what leaving does. I know what it costs. I would never, never do that to you. You can't promise that. You're right. I can't promise forever. Nobody can. But I can promise today, and tomorrow, and the day after that. And every day I'll wake up and make the same promise again. That's all any of us can do. Victoria's hands trembled in his. She didn't pull away. I'm difficult, she said. I know. I'm controlling and stubborn, and I work too much, and I don't know how to relax, and I'll probably try to reorganize your entire shop. Probably. And I'll fight you on everything, because that's what I do. I fight. Good. I could use someone to fight with. Noah doesn't put up much of a challenge anymore. I heard that, Noah yelled from the couch. You're supposed to be watching your show, Daniel yelled back. I'm multitasking, Victoria laughed through the tears that had started falling. Tears she didn't try to hide, didn't wipe away, didn't pretend weren't happening. She let them fall because Daniel was holding her hands, and Noah was eavesdropping from the couch. And the apartment that had felt like a hotel for 6 years suddenly felt like something else entirely. It felt like the beginning of something. Daniel squeezed her hands. Can I ask you something now? Yes. Will you come to Noah's soccer game next weekend? He asked me to ask you. He's been practicing his goal celebration, and he says he needs an audience. What's the celebration? He won't tell me. He says it's classified. Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Tell him I'll be there. He's going to lose his mind. Already lost it, Noah shouted from the living room. I can hear everything. Victoria, you're coming to my game? Yes, Noah, I'm coming to your game. Yes! Dad, she said yes! Did you hear? She said yes! Daniel shook his head. No secrets in this family. Family. He said it without thinking. It slipped out like a word that had been waiting for the right moment. Victoria caught it. Daniel caught himself catching it. Their eyes met. He didn't take it back. She didn't want him to. Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway, tablet still in hand, grinning so wide his face could barely contain it.
Victoria, after the game, can we get ice cream? Dad always gets ice cream after games, but he only lets me get one scoop. And I think with you there, I can negotiate for two. You can try, Victoria said. I'm a pretty tough negotiator. But you're on my side, right? Victoria looked at this boy, this bright, bold, motherless boy, who had walked into her life uninvited and refused to leave. And she felt something click into place. Like a gear she didn't know was loose, finally catching. Yeah, Noah, she said. I'm on your side. Noah pumped his fist and ran back to the couch. Daniel was still holding one of her hands. He hadn't let go. He loves you, Daniel said quietly. You know that, right? He barely knows me. Kids don't need time. They need truth. And you've given him more truth in a few weeks than most people give in a lifetime. Victoria tightened her grip on his hand. I love him too, she said. And she meant it with every part of herself. The strong parts and the broken parts, and the parts she was still learning to put back together. Daniel lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, gently, like she was something precious and unbreakable at the same time. Then stay, he said. Stay for dinner. Stay for the game. Stay for all of it. Victoria looked at him, at his kind, steady eyes, at the grease still under his fingernails from the shop, at the man who practiced his greeting in the mirror 12 times and brought his kid on a blind date because he had no babysitter, and kissed her in a parking lot while crouching next to her wheelchair like it was the most natural thing in the world. Okay, she said. One word, 2 letters. The smallest, bravest thing she'd ever said. She stayed for dinner that night, and the night after Noah's soccer game, and 3 more nights that week. It happened gradually, the way big things always do. Not with announcements or decisions, but with small, accumulating moments that stacked on top of each other until suddenly the stack was too tall to ignore. Victoria's toothbrush appeared in Daniel's bathroom. A box of the tea she liked showed up in his kitchen cabinet. Noah started setting 3 places at the table without being asked. Nobody talked about it. It just was. But the world outside Daniel's small house didn't operate on the same quiet logic. Victoria learned that the hard way, on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in a conference room with her board of directors. Richard Callan, the chairman, was a man who wore his authority like an expensive suit, perfectly tailored and designed to make everyone else feel underdressed. He'd been on Victoria's board since the early days, back when Hale Technologies was a startup running out of her apartment. He'd believed in her then. But believing in someone and controlling someone are separated by a very thin line, and Richard had been walking that line for years. Your numbers are down, Richard said, sliding a report across the table. My numbers are fine, Victoria said. Revenue is up 11% quarter over quarter. Revenue is up. Focus is down. You've missed 3 calls with the Tokyo team. You rescheduled the product review twice. And you left the office at 5 o'clock last Thursday. I left at 5 o'clock because I had somewhere to be. You've never had somewhere to be. That's what made you effective. Victoria's hands tightened on her armrests. Careful, Richard. I'm being careful. I'm being very careful. Because I've watched you build this company for 6 years. And I've never seen you distracted. Not once. And now suddenly, you're leaving early and missing meetings. And I'm hearing things. What things? That you're seeing someone. The room went quiet. The other 4 board members, 2 women, 2 men, shifted in their seats. Nobody looked at Victoria directly. They all looked at Richard, then at the table, then at their phones. My personal life is not on the agenda, Victoria said. It is when it affects the company. It doesn't affect the company. You missed a call with Tokyo. I rescheduled a call with Tokyo. There's a difference. The deal closed anyway. Richard leaned back. He had that look, the one Victoria had seen in 100 negotiations. The look of a man who thinks he's holding better cards.
Victoria, this company is your life. You built it from nothing. You poured everything into it. And the reason it works, the reason investors trust us, the reason we're worth what we're worth, is because everyone knows Victoria Hale doesn't stop. She doesn't slow down. She doesn't get distracted. Say what you mean, Richard. I mean that a woman in your position can't afford to lose her edge. A woman in my position.
Interesting choice of words.
You know what I mean. I do, and you should think very carefully about whether you want to keep going down this road. Richard held up his hands. I'm not the enemy here. I'm looking out for you, for the company. We've got the Series D round coming up. Investors are watching. If they think the founder is checked out, I am not checked out. Then prove it. The next 6 weeks matter, Victoria. The product launch, the funding round, the Tokyo partnership. This is the most critical period in the company's history, and I need to know your head is in it. My head is always in it. Then act like it. Victoria stared at him. Richard stared back. The room held its breath. Are we done? Victoria said. We're done. She wheeled out of that conference room with her jaw locked and her pulse hammering. She made it to her office, closed the door, and sat there in the silence, gripping the wheels of her chair so hard her knuckles went white.
She wanted to call Daniel. She needed to hear his voice, needed that steady calm that made everything feel manageable. But something stopped her. Something Richard had said, or maybe something he hadn't said but had implied, was crawling under her skin. A woman in your position can't afford to lose her edge. Was she losing her edge? She thought about the last few weeks, the missed calls, the rescheduled meetings, the fact that for the first time in 6 years she'd been leaving the office before dark. She'd been choosing dinners with Daniel and Noah over late nights with spreadsheets. She'd been choosing happiness over productivity. And that terrified her. Because Richard was right about one thing. This company was everything she'd built in place of a life. It was the proof that the wheelchair hadn't beaten her, that the accident hadn't won, that she was still here, still standing, figuratively at least, still fighting. If she lost the company, what was left? She picked up her phone, put it down, picked it up again. Then she called Megan. What's wrong? Megan said immediately. Why do you assume something's wrong? Because you're calling me at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. You never call during business hours unless something's wrong. Richard gave me a lecture. About what? About being distracted. About Daniel. About losing my focus. Richard Callan can go straight to... He's not wrong. Megan paused. Excuse me? He's not wrong, Megan. I have been distracted. I have been missing things. I left the office at 5 o'clock last week to go to Noah's soccer game. That's called having a life, Victoria. That's called losing grip. I didn't build this company by having a life. I built it by sacrificing one. And now you're getting one back. That's not a problem. That's progress. Not to the board, not to investors, not to anyone who's counting on me to deliver. Vic, listen to me. You've given that company every waking hour for 6 years. Every holiday, every weekend, every night. You've earned the right to leave at 5 o'clock. You've earned the right to watch a kid's soccer game. You've earned the right to be happy. Earned it or not, the numbers still have to be there. The numbers are there. You said revenue is up. Revenue is up, but perception matters. And right now, the perception is that the CEO of Hale Technologies is going soft. The word hung in the air like smoke. Soft. The one thing Victoria had sworn she'd never be. The thing she'd built every wall, every system, every defense against. You're not going soft, Megan said. You're going human.
There's a difference. Tell that to Richard. I will. Give me his number. Megan. I'm serious. Let me call him. No. I'll handle it. I always handle it. She hung up. She stared at her phone.
She thought about calling Daniel and telling them everything. About Richard, about the board, about the fear that was wrapping itself around her chest like a vice. Instead, she texted him. Tough day. Can I see you tonight? His response came in 30 seconds. Always. I'll make dinner. Noah's requesting his famous grilled cheese, which is just regular grilled cheese, but he insists on calling it famous. Sounds perfect. It's not. It's mediocre at best. But Noah's marketing is excellent. Victoria smiled at her phone. Then she put it away, pulled up the Tokyo files, and worked until 7:30, because she could do both. She could have the company and the man and the boy. She could have the edge and the softness. She just had to prove it, to Richard, to the board, and mostly to herself. She showed up at Daniel's house at 8:15. Noah answered the door. You look tired, he said. Thanks, Noah. Dad looks tired too. You guys should sleep more. We'll take that under advisement. Noah led her inside. Daniel was in the kitchen, a grilled cheese sandwich in one hand and a spatula in the other. He looked up when she came in, and she saw it immediately. The shift in his expression, the way his eyes scanned her face and read it like a book. Bad day? He asked. I don't want to talk about it yet. Can we just eat? Yeah, we can just eat. They ate. Noah talked about his friend Marcus, who had allegedly smuggled a frog into school in his backpack and released it during a spelling test. Daniel made Victoria laugh 3 times despite herself. The grilled cheese was, as predicted, mediocre. But Noah's presentation, complete with a bow and an announcement of Chef Noah's world-famous grilled cheese, served with love and also ketchup, made it the best meal she'd had all week. After dinner, Noah went to his room to read. Daniel and Victoria sat in the kitchen, and the quiet settled between them like something physical. Tell me, Daniel said. It's work stuff. You don't want to hear about... Victoria, tell me. She told him. About Richard, about the board meeting, about the missed calls and the perception problem, and the Series D round, and the fear that she was losing the one thing that had kept her alive for 6 years. Daniel listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions. He just listened, the way he always did, with his whole body, leaning forward, eyes steady, hands still. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Can I say something? He asked. Yes? That man, Richard, he's using your fear against you. What do you mean? I mean, he knows the one thing that scares you more than anything is losing control. Losing the company. Being the woman in the wheelchair with nothing to show for it. And he used that fear to put you back in line. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He didn't say, you're bad at your job, Daniel continued. He said, you're losing your edge. Those are different things. One is about performance. The other is about identity. He attacked who you are, not what you do. And he did it in front of the whole board. It's not that simple. It is that simple. He's threatened by the fact that for the first time in 6 years, you have something in your life that isn't the company. Something he can't control. Something that makes you less dependent on the job. Or he's looking out for the company. Maybe. But if your revenue is up 11% and the Tokyo deal closed, then the company's fine. What's not fine, for him, is a CEO who might start setting boundaries, who might start saying no, who might start putting her own life ahead of late-night conference calls. Victoria stared at him. When did you get so smart about corporate politics?
I watch a lot of movies, and I've dealt with my share of guys like Richard. Different setting, my shop, not a boardroom. But the type is the same.
People who think they own a piece of you because they were there early.
He was there early. He invested when nobody else would. And you paid that back 100 times over. You don't owe him your happiness. I owe him results. Then give him results, but don't give him your soul. There's a difference. Victoria felt the tightness in her chest begin to ease. Not because Daniel had solved anything. The board meeting was still real. The Series D was still coming. Richard was still a problem. But because for the first time, she didn't feel alone in it. What if he's right, though? She said quietly. What if I can't have both, the company and this? What if I have to choose? Who says you have to choose? Everyone, the world, the math. There are only so many hours in a day, Daniel.
And every hour I spend here with you and Noah is an hour I'm not spending on what? On being miserable at your desk at midnight? On proving to a board full of people that you can sacrifice yourself harder than anyone else? Victoria, what's the point of building an empire if you're too empty to enjoy it? The empire is the point. That's what you don't understand. For people like me, people in this chair, the empire is all we have. It's the only thing that makes us visible, the only thing that makes us matter. You matter to me. You matter to Noah, right now, without the empire. And if the empire falls apart, if I lose everything, would I still matter then? Are you seriously asking me that? Yes, I'm seriously asking you that. Daniel stood up. He walked around the table and crouched in front of her, the same way he'd crouched when he kissed her, the same way he crouched to talk to Noah, at her level, always at her level. I fell for a woman, not a company, he said. If your business disappeared tomorrow, every cent, every office, every contract, you'd still be the woman who makes my kid laugh, who argues with me about everything, who eats onion rings like it's a spiritual practice. That's who I want. Not the CEO. You. You make it sound simple. It is simple. People complicate it because complicated feels safer. But love is simple, Victoria. You show up, you stay. You tell the truth. Everything else is noise. Love, she said. The word landed between them like a dropped glass. Daniel didn't blink. Yeah, he said. Love. You haven't said that before. I'm saying it now. Daniel, I love you. I love your stubbornness and your laugh and the way you talk to my son like he's the most important person in the room. I love that you're scared of this because it means it matters to you. I love that you drove to my greasy little shop and ate a deli sandwich in my cluttered office and acted like it was the best meal you'd ever had. It wasn't the best meal I'd ever had. I know. The point still stands. Victoria's eyes were burning. She blinked hard, but the tears came anyway, hot and fast and unstoppable, the way they'd been coming more and more since this man walked into her life and cracked every wall she'd spent 6 years building. I don't know how to do this, she said. I don't know how to be loved. I know how to run a company. I know how to close a deal. I know how to sit in a room full of people who underestimate me and make them regret it. But this? Sitting in your kitchen, crying while you tell me you love me. I have no playbook for this. Good. Playbooks are for business. This is life. My life is business. It was. It doesn't have to be. Noah's voice came from down the hall. Dad, is Victoria staying tonight? Daniel looked at her. She looked at him. Yeah, buddy, Daniel called back. She's staying. Can she read me a story? Daniel raised an eyebrow at Victoria. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and took a shaky breath. Which one? She called out. The one about the dragon who's scared of flying?
I don't know that one.
That's okay. I'll help you. I know all the words.
Victoria wheeled down the hallway to Noah's room. He was in bed, blankets pulled up to his chin, a well-worn picture book on the nightstand. She picked it up. The cover showed a small green dragon sitting on a cliff, looking down at the clouds below with wide, frightened eyes. "The dragon's name is Gordo," Noah said. "He's the only dragon who can't fly." "Why can't he fly?" "He can fly. He's just scared. All the other dragons make fun of him because he stays on the ground." Victoria looked at the dragon on the cover. Small, scared, grounded while everyone else soared, and felt something tighten in her throat. "What happens to him?" she asked. "You have to read it to find out. That's how books work, Victoria." She opened the book. She started reading.
Noah corrected her on the voices. "Gordo sounds more scared than that. You have to make your voice shaky." And filled in the parts she didn't do right. Daniel stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, watching them. The dragon, Gordo, spent the whole book on the ground, watching other dragons fly. He built things instead: bridges, towers, paths through mountains. The other dragons laughed at him. Why build a bridge when you can fly over it? But one day, a storm came, and the wind was so strong that none of the dragons could fly. They were all grounded. And the only one who knew how to move through the world without wings was Gordo. He led them across his bridges, through his paths, along the roads he'd built while everyone else was in the sky. The last page showed Gordo standing at the front of the group, all the other dragons following behind him on the ground. And the text read, "Sometimes the one who can't fly is the one who shows everyone else how to walk." Victoria closed the book. Noah's eyes were already half shut. "That's my favorite part," Noah murmured. "The walking part." "Why?" "Because Gordo doesn't change. He doesn't learn to fly. He just finds out that being different is actually his superpower." Victoria set the book down. She looked at this boy, his bandaged forehead healed now, his eyes closing, his small body curled under a blanket covered in cartoon rockets. And she understood, with absolute clarity, why this child had walked into her life. "Good night, Noah," she whispered. "Good night, Victoria. I'm glad you stayed." "Me too." His breathing evened out. Victoria sat there for a moment, the book still warm in her hands, and then she wheeled back to the hallway where Daniel was waiting. "You heard the story?" she asked. "Every time. I've heard it probably 300 times. He picked it on purpose. He picks it for everyone. But yeah, tonight, he picked it for you." Victoria looked down at her hands, at the wheelchair, at the wheels that had carried her through 6 years of corporate battles and lonely nights and quiet mornings where the silence felt like a weight she couldn't lift. "I'm Gordo," she said. "You're Gordo. A dragon who can't fly, but builds bridges. A dragon who shows everyone else how to walk." She looked up at him. "I love you too, Daniel. I should have said it back when you said it. I was just scared. Scared. I know. I'm going to fight Richard. I'm going to fight the board. I'm going to close the Series D and launch the product and prove that I can run my company and have a life at the same time. And it's going to be hard, and I'm going to be difficult. And there will be nights when I'm on conference calls until midnight, and mornings when I leave before Noah wakes up. I know. But I'm not choosing anymore. I'm not choosing between the company and this, between the empire and the kitchen table. I'm building a bridge, Daniel, between both worlds. And I need you to walk across it with me." Daniel pulled her close, chair and all, and held her. Not gently, not carefully, not the way people hold someone they think might break.
He held her like she was solid, like she was real, like she was the strongest thing he'd ever touched. "I'll walk across anything with you," he said. And in a small house on the wrong side of town, in a kitchen that smelled like mediocre grilled cheese, a woman who hadn't cried in 6 years, and a man who'd been alone for 5, stood together in the quiet and made a promise that had nothing to do with words. It had to do with staying. It had to do with choosing. It had to do with the terrifying, beautiful, impossible act of letting someone see you, all of you, the broken parts and the built parts, and the parts still under construction, and trusting them not to look away. Noah's breathing drifted down the hallway, soft and steady, and for the first time, Victoria Hale felt like she was home. The next 6 weeks were a war. Victoria fought on 2 fronts, the boardroom and her own heart. And some days, she couldn't tell which battlefield was more brutal. The Series D round demanded everything. 14-hour days, back-to-back investor meetings, calls with Tokyo at 3 in the morning, and calls with London at 6. She reviewed pitch decks until the words blurred, rewrote the product roadmap twice, and personally called every major investor on the list to make sure they understood what Hale Technologies was building and why it mattered. Richard watched her. She could feel it, his eyes in every meeting, his silence louder than his words. He didn't bring up Daniel again. He didn't have to. The implication hung in the air like smoke. "Prove you haven't lost your edge, or I'll prove it for you." Victoria proved it. She closed the first tranche of funding in 3 weeks, $42 million, the largest single raise in the company's history. She locked in the Tokyo partnership with terms so favorable that her CFO called her a magician. She oversaw the product launch personally, staying at the office for 36 hours straight during the final push, reviewing every line of code, every user interface detail, every customer-facing message. And she did it while texting Daniel goodnight, while calling Noah to hear about his day, while showing up, exhausted, wrung out, running on caffeine and willpower, at a 9-year-old soccer games on Saturday mornings. She did both, because she'd said she would, because she'd promised herself she would, because somewhere in the back of her mind, a small green dragon named Gordo was building bridges. But it cost her. Daniel could see it. He saw it in the circles under her eyes, in the way her voice thinned on the phone at night, in the way she fell asleep mid-sentence during their calls, and he'd listen to her breathe before hanging up. He didn't push. Not at first. He gave her space the way you give space to someone carrying something heavy, not by walking away, but by walking beside them in silence, ready to catch whatever they drop. But one night, 3 days before the product launch, Victoria showed up at his house at 10 o'clock. She'd been in meetings since 7 that morning. She hadn't eaten since noon. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, not from nerves, but from exhaustion so deep it had settled into her bones. Daniel opened the door and looked at her. She looked back at him with eyes that were flat, empty, running on nothing. "I can't do this," she said. "Can't do what?" "Any of it. All of it. I'm so tired, Daniel. I'm so tired I can't think straight. I can't feel my hands."
I haven't slept more than 3 hours in a week. Richard is pushing for a board vote to bring in a COO, which is code for someone to replace me. The Tokyo team wants changes to the contract at the last minute, and I have a product launching in 72 hours that 10,000 people are counting on. She was shaking harder now. Daniel crouched down in front of her. "Come inside," he said. "I can't stay. I have to go back. I just needed to—" "I don't know what I needed. I just drove here. I didn't even think about it. I just drove." "Victoria, come inside." She came inside. He made her tea, the kind she liked, the kind he'd started keeping in his cabinet weeks ago. He sat across from her at the kitchen table and waited.
"Tell me about the board vote," he said. "Richard's been building a coalition. He's got 2 of the 5 board members on his side. He wants to bring in an outside COO, someone he can control, someone who'll dilute my authority. He's framing it as support for the CEO during a critical growth phase. But we both know what it really is. A power grab. A quiet one. The kind you don't see until it's too late. What do you need to stop it?" 3 votes. I have mine and 1 other, Susan Park. She's been loyal since the beginning. I need 1 more. And right now, the swing vote is James Whitfield, who's been dodging my calls for a week. Why is he dodging? Because Richard got to him first. Fed him a story about the CEO being distracted, unfocused, compromised. James is old school. He thinks a company should be run by someone with no life outside the office. Someone like I used to be. And you think he's right. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You showed up at my door at 10 o'clock, shaking, telling me you can't do this. You're not just fighting Richard, Victoria. You're fighting the part of yourself that agrees with him. The words hit her like ice water. She wanted to argue. She wanted to say he was wrong, that she was just tired, that it was the lack of sleep talking. But she couldn't, because he was right, and they both knew it. "Part of me thinks I made a mistake," she said. "Part of me thinks I should have kept things the way they were. Alone, focused, untouchable." Is that what you want? To go back to that? No. Then stop looking backward. You made a choice. You chose to let people in. Now fight for it. I'm fighting for the company. I'm not talking about the company. I'm talking about you. Fight for the version of yourself that sits at this table and drinks tea and laughs at Noah's jokes. Fight for the woman who read a picture book to a 9-year-old and cried in my kitchen. That woman deserves to exist, Victoria. Don't let Richard Callan or anyone else tell you she doesn't. Victoria's jaw tightened. She gripped her teacup with both hands and stared into it like she was looking for an answer in the steam. "How do I get James?" she said. "What does he care about?" "Returns, legacy, being on the winning side." "Then show him the winning side. You just raised $42 million. The product launches in 3 days. Tokyo is locked in. If that's not the winning side, what is?" He doesn't see it that way. He sees a CEO who leaves the office at 5 o'clock. Then make him see the CEO who raised $42 million. Invite him to the launch. Put him in the room. Let him feel the energy, the momentum, the scale of what you've built. Richard wins with whispers. You win with proof. Victoria looked at him, this mechanic, this man who fixed engines and made grilled cheese and drove a truck with French fries under the seats. This man who understood power dynamics and boardroom strategy better than half the MBAs on her payroll. "You should be running a company," she said. "I am running a company. It's just a very small one with a lot of grease." She almost smiled. Almost. "Will you come?" she asked. "To the launch?" "Yes." "Victoria, that's your world. Investors, tech people, media. I'm a mechanic from the other side of town. I'll stick out like—" "I want you there. I want Noah there. I want James Whitfield to see me, the whole me. The CEO, the woman, the person who has a life and a family and still built something worth $200 million. I'm done hiding parts of myself to make other people comfortable." Daniel studied her face. The exhaustion was still there, but something else had joined it. Something harder, sharper, more focused. The fire he'd seen the first night at Rosario's, when she'd slammed her fist on the table and said, "I don't need your pity." "What should I wear?" he asked. "Whatever you want." "Even the shirt with the ironing disaster?" "Especially that one." The product launch was on Friday evening. Hale Technologies had rented out a venue downtown. 400 seats, a main stage, press credentials, the works. Victoria had done launches before, but never one this big. Never one with this much riding on it. She arrived 2 hours early. She reviewed the presentation. She checked the audio. She called her team leads one by one and told them the same thing. We built this. We're ready. Let's show them. At 6:15, Daniel texted her. We're here. Noah is wearing a tie. He tied it himself. It looks like a pretzel. Perfect. Come to the side entrance. I'll have someone meet you. She sent her assistant to bring them in. 5 minutes later, Daniel walked through the door, holding Noah's hand. Noah was wearing khaki pants, a white shirt, and a tie that did in fact look like a pretzel. Daniel was wearing a dark jacket over a clean button-down. No grease, no wrinkles, and his shoes were polished. You clean up nice, Victoria said. Noah dressed me. I had no say in any of this. I picked the jacket, Noah announced. It was in the back of his closet. I think it's from the 90s. It's from 2012, Daniel said. Same thing. Victoria reached out and straightened Noah's tie. It didn't help much, but Noah beamed like she'd handed him a trophy. You nervous? Daniel asked her quietly. Terrified. Good. You do your best work terrified. How would you know? Because you were terrified the first night at Rosario's. And you were magnificent. The word settled over her like armor. Magnificent. Nobody had ever called her that. Impressive, yes. Remarkable, sure. Those were corporate words, words people used about achievements. Magnificent was something else. Magnificent was about her. Richard is here, she said. Front row. He brought James. Then let's give James a show. The lights dimmed at 7 o'clock. Victoria wheeled onto the stage to applause that was polite, expectant, measured. The kind of applause people give when they're waiting to be convinced. She didn't start with numbers. She didn't start with the product. She started with a story. 7 years ago, she said, I was in a car accident. I was 29 years old. I was driving home from a job I hated, thinking about a business idea I'd been too scared to pursue. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed, and a doctor was telling me I'd never walk again. The room went still. I could have given up. A lot of people expected me to, and for about 3 days I considered it. But on the 4th day, I opened my laptop and I started writing code. From that hospital bed, with tubes in my arms and a future I couldn't imagine, I wrote the first lines of what would become Hale Technologies. She paused. She looked at the audience, the investors, the press, the employees, the board members in the front row. Richard's face was unreadable. James was leaning forward. People ask me all the time what drives me. They expect me to say money or success or proving people wrong. But the truth is simpler than that. What drives me is the same thing that drove me in that hospital bed. The refusal to let anyone else define my limits. She launched into the product presentation. It was flawless. 45 minutes of vision and data and demonstration that left the room buzzing. The product worked. The numbers were real. The future she was painting was vivid and convincing, and backed by every metric that mattered. But the moment that changed everything, the moment that Victoria would remember for the rest of her life, came at the very end. She finished her presentation. The applause was loud now, genuine, the kind that comes from people who've been convinced. She thanked her team. She thanked her investors. She was about to close when Noah's voice cut through the room. That's my Victoria! 400 heads turned. Noah was standing on his chair in the 3rd row, both arms raised, tie askew, grinning with his whole face.
Daniel was trying to pull him down, mortified, apologizing to the people around them. The room erupted. Not polite applause, real laughter, real warmth, the kind of sound that no PR firm could manufacture. Victoria looked at Noah, at Daniel, at this small, chaotic family that had crashed into her perfectly controlled life and made it messy and loud and unpredictable and beautiful. "That," she said into the microphone, her voice cracking just enough for everyone to hear, "is my family." The applause was deafening. After the event, James Whitfield found Victoria in the hallway. "That was remarkable," he said. "Thank you, James. The product is strong. The numbers are strong. The team believes in you." "They do." James glanced toward the lobby, where Daniel was helping Noah put on his jacket. "Richard came to me 3 weeks ago," James said. "He told me you were losing focus, that your personal life was interfering with your leadership." "And what do you think?" James watched Daniel crouch down to zip Noah's jacket, watched Noah say something that made Daniel laugh. Watched them wait by the door, not impatiently, not anxiously, just waiting, the way people wait for someone they love. "I think Richard is wrong," James said. "I think a leader who can build what you've built and still have a 9-year-old yelling her name from the audience is the kind of leader I want to invest in." "The board vote, I'm voting with you. Richard won't have his majority. He won't have his COO. You'll have my support, Victoria." Victoria extended her hand. James shook it. "One more thing," James said. "That boy's tie is a disaster." "I know. He tied it himself. Tell him to keep practicing. He'll get it." James walked away. Victoria sat in the hallway for a moment, letting the relief wash through her. Not just relief about the vote, but relief about something bigger. She had stood on that stage as the full version of herself. Not just the CEO, not just the woman in the wheelchair, the whole person. And the world hadn't collapsed. The investors hadn't fled. The company hadn't crumbled. If anything, it had gotten stronger. She wheeled to the lobby. Daniel was leaning against the wall. Noah was sitting on the floor, playing with a program he'd folded into a paper airplane. "How'd it go?" Daniel asked. "James is voting with me. Richard loses." Daniel exhaled. "So it's over?" "The board fight is over. The work isn't. It never is. But tonight? Tonight is ours." They drove home, to Daniel's house, which Victoria had started calling home without realizing it. Noah fell asleep in the back seat before they hit the highway. Daniel carried him inside and put him to bed, while Victoria waited in the kitchen. Daniel came back and sat across from her. The same kitchen, the same table, the same 2 chairs, one for him, one pulled away to make room for hers. A geography that had become as natural as breathing. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said. "You're full of announcements tonight." "This one's different." Daniel leaned back. "Okay." "I've been thinking about what Noah said, weeks ago, when he came to my apartment and said it looked like a hotel. He said there was nothing on the walls, no pictures of family." "He tends to remember things like that." "He was right. There was nothing. Because I didn't have anything to put there. But I do now." She reached into her bag and pulled out a framed photo. She'd had it printed that morning, the picture Noah had sent her from the hospital, the one with the bandage on his forehead and the handmade card. She'd put it in a simple silver frame. "I want to put this up," she said, "in my apartment, on the wall." Daniel looked at the photo. His jaw worked. He swallowed hard. "Victoria, I also want to put up the drawing Noah made of me, the one where I'm in my wheelchair and he wrote, 'My dad's friend,' at the bottom. Except, I want him to update it." "Update it to what?" "I was thinking something more accurate, like my Victoria, since that's what he called me tonight in front of 400 people." Daniel's eyes were bright. He blinked and looked at the ceiling, and laughed the kind of laugh that comes out when you're trying not to cry. "I also want a key," Victoria said. "A key.
To this house. I'm tired of knocking. You've never knocked in your life. You text me from the driveway and I open the door. Fine. I want a key so I can stop texting you from the driveway. Daniel stood up. He walked to the counter, opened a drawer, rummaged through it, and pulled out a key on a plain metal ring. He walked back and placed it on the table in front of her. It's been in that drawer for 2 weeks, he said. I just didn't know how to give it to you. Victoria picked up the key. It was warm from being in the drawer, small and ordinary and heavier than it should have been for what it represented. 2 weeks, she said. Noah told me to just hand it to you. I said it was more complicated than that. He said, Dad, it's a key, not a marriage proposal. He's smarter than both of us. By a significant margin, yes. Victoria closed her hand around the key. She held it tight, this small metal thing that meant she had somewhere to go, someone to go to, a door that was hers to open. There's one more thing, she said. How many things are there tonight? Last one, I promise. She took a breath, a real one, the kind you take before jumping. I want to bring Noah to my office, not for a visit. I want him to come after school sometimes, when you're working late at the shop. I want him to do his homework at my conference table. I want him to meet my team. I want him to see what I built, not because I need him to be impressed, but because I want him to know that the woman who reads him bedtime stories also built something real, something lasting. I want him to see both parts of me, Daniel, the kitchen table and the boardroom. Because for the first time in my life, both parts are true. Daniel didn't speak for a long time. He sat there, looking at her, his hands flat on the table, his breath slow and steady. You know what Noah's going to do when he gets to your office? Daniel finally said. What? He's going to reorganize your desk. He's going to tell your employees their coffee is bad. He's going to find your expired cheese, because I guarantee you've got expired cheese somewhere. And he's going to announce it to the entire floor. Probably. And he's going to love every second of it. And so are you. Yeah, I think I will. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he had the first time, firmly, like he was holding something he never intended to let go of. Victoria Hale, he said, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met. And I don't say that because of the company or the money or the speech tonight. I say it because you sat in a hospital bed at 29 with your whole life in pieces, and you chose to build. Not just a business, not just a career. You chose to build yourself. Piece by piece, wall by wall, bridge by bridge. And now you're choosing to let someone walk across those bridges with you. That takes more courage than any product launch. It really does, she said. Product launches are easy. This is hard. The hard stuff is always worth it. Is that on a bumper sticker somewhere? Probably. Doesn't make it less true. She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. I love you, Daniel Rivera. I love you, Victoria Hale. Even though I'm difficult? Especially because you're difficult. Even though I'll probably try to optimize your shop's inventory system? I'm counting on it, actually. My filing system is a shoebox. Even though I don't know how to make grilled cheese? That's a deal breaker. Daniel. I'm kidding. Noah will teach you. He's been waiting for an apprentice. Victoria laughed. That laugh, the one that had been buried for 6 years. The one Daniel had found at Rosario's and kept pulling out of her, again and again, like a well that never ran dry. A noise from the hallway. Small footsteps. Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing his eyes, pajamas crooked, hair sticking up in 3 directions. Why are you guys still up? He mumbled. We're talking, Daniel said. Go back to bed. Are you talking about me? Not everything is about you, buddy. Most things are. Noah looked at Victoria. Even half asleep, his eyes were sharp. Are you staying? Yeah, Noah, I'm staying. Good. He started to turn back toward his room, then stopped. Victoria? Yeah? I'm glad my dad went on that blind date, even though his shirt was weird. Me too, Noah. And I'm glad you came to my game, and read me Gordo, and that you yelled at the referee that one time. I didn't yell. I expressed a strong opinion. You yelled. It was awesome. He shuffled back to bed. They heard his door close, his mattress creak, and then silence. Daniel looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at Daniel. We made that kid's life better, Daniel said quietly. Just by being together. Just by choosing this. He made mine better first. It's not a competition. Everything's a competition. I'm a CEO. Daniel shook his head, smiling. Then he grew serious. He reached into his jacket pocket, the jacket Noah had picked from the back of the closet, the one from 2012 that still fit, and pulled out something small. I wasn't going to do this tonight, he said. I was going to wait. Find the right moment. Plan something. But I'm a mechanic, Victoria. I don't plan things. I fix them. And right now, sitting in this kitchen with you, after the night you just had, after everything we've been through, this feels like the right moment. Victoria's breath stopped. Daniel opened his hand. In his palm was a ring. Not a diamond, not a gemstone. A simple band of brushed steel, handmade, slightly imperfect, like he'd shaped it himself. I made it at the shop, he said, from a piece of the first car I ever restored. A 1969 Camaro I bought for $300 when I was 19. I've kept a piece of it ever since. It's the thing that taught me patience, taught me that broken things can be made whole again. Victoria stared at the ring, her vision blurred. I'm not asking you to give up anything, Daniel said. Not the company, not the corner office, not a single piece of who you are. I'm asking you to add something, to add me, and Noah, and this messy, loud, grilled cheese-burning, volcano-obsessed, pretzel tie-wearing life we've got. Daniel, marry me, Victoria. Not because you need me, because you chose me, the way I choose you. Every morning, every night, for as long as we both have the guts to keep showing up. Victoria's hands were shaking. Not from exhaustion this time, not from fear, from something so full and overwhelming that her body couldn't contain it. 6 years of frozen silence cracking open all at once. A dam breaking. A lifetime of I can't becoming I can. I will. I already have. She took the ring from his palm. She held it up. It caught the kitchen light, imperfect, handmade, forged from something old and broken and rebuilt into something new. Yes, she said. Yeah? Yeah. Daniel's face broke open. That smile, the real one, the one that was just a smile, the one that had reached across a table at a small Italian restaurant and pulled her out of 6 years of darkness. He kissed her. In the kitchen, next to the mugs that didn't match, under the fluorescent light that buzzed slightly, with a 9-year-old's drawings on the fridge and a paper airplane on the floor and a copy of a dragon book on the counter. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. It wasn't cinematic. It was real. And 3 feet down the hallway, Noah, who was absolutely not asleep, whispered into his pillow. Yes, I knew it. I knew it. I told Dad she was the one. 6 months later, Victoria Hale married Daniel Rivera in the backyard of his small house on the wrong side of town. 40 people attended. Megan was the maid of honor. Marco was the best man. Noah was the ring bearer. and he walked down the aisle with a tie that, for the first time, was perfectly tied, because Victoria had taught him how. The ring on Victoria's finger was still that same band of brushed steel. She'd been offered diamonds. She'd turned them all down. She wanted the ring that was forged from something broken and made whole again. Because that was her story. That was their story. Hale Technologies hit $1 billion valuation 8 months later. Richard Callan resigned from the board. James Whitfield took a seat as chairman, and at the first meeting under his leadership, proposed a new company policy. No meetings after 5 o'clock on Fridays. The motion passed unanimously. Noah got his 2 scoops of ice cream every Saturday, without negotiation. And Victoria Hale, CEO, wife, mother in every way that mattered, dragon who never learned to fly but showed everyone else how to walk, never slammed her fist on a table again. She didn't need to. She had everything she'd ever been afraid to want, and she held it with open hands, and it stayed. It stayed.